back to the thyroid piece here. You mentioned like the immune cells, you mentioned the immune stress. Now, we're also going to be looking at blood for this, right? So you would suggest if we are seeing a lot of these hypo symptoms, yes, we're going to run some DNA stool testing, but we're also going to want to look at blood too, because we may find some other answers there. Now, I would argue, and I'm guessing you may agree with me, that blood is going to be more of looking at the effect, not necessarily the cause. Meaning, if you look at the gut infections, that's more of a cause, but we may see the TPO antibodies, we may see the TG antibodies, we may see like a high reverse T3, but that doesn't necessarily change the game plan, right? Because you still have to go to the gut to fix the parasites that caused the high reverse T3 in the first place.
Correct. So how conventional medicine looks at things, right, may not pick some of these things up. So let's say they're even looking in the thyroid. Let's say they're entertaining you. Let's say you listen to this podcast, you go in and they're testing your gut and you're like, hey, can you also look at my thyroid too? They may not even run these markers, as they typically run just TSH. And maybe if you're lucky, you can get a T4 free or total. That's it. Now, if your TSH is overly high, then it'll get picked up. But what is overly high? Maybe greater than 4.5 to 5, but it can take a long time for the TSH to go that high. Like TSH doesn't just go high like that in the snap of your fingers. It takes a lot of years, maybe even decade, to get to that level. So if you have high TSH, you can just guarantee that issue's been going on for a long time. So that's pretty much how you know if it's been going on for a while. And then now you have the downstream T4 and T3 that need to be looked at. And T3 is very important because T3 gets converted from T4. So T4 is your inactive thyroid hormone. T3 is your active thyroid hormone. We almost never test this T3 number. And a lot of times we can have a conversion issue. So your T4 may be adequate, and then we have a drop in T3. So T3 is not at an equal par in regards to the percentile of the reference range. And then we definitely know antibodies aren't tested. That's really tough. And partly because they don't do anything because of it, because treating a thyroid autoimmune condition with conventional medicine standards, they use high dose prednisone and immunosuppressant medications. Those medications for a thyroid issue, that would actually cause more side effects than the thyroid issue itself. So they tend to stay away from treating a thyroid issue. So they don't really do any tests to reveal that it's there if it's autoimmune. So you kind of get stuck in no man's land.
Oh God, that's a great point. That's what I was going to say. I mean, it just frustrates me where you and I will have, new patients come in, they'll send us blood work and we'll look at these, endocrinologists that may have even extra credentials, but yet their thyroid panel is still more generic than what you and I are running. And it infuriates me because these people, they're spending so much money. They're traveling to Mayo Clinic and whatever else, and they're still not even getting what you and I would consider basic or foundational screening. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, it's a combination of two things. It's a combination of, one, they're not aware because they've kind of been like handcuffed, like, oh, well, we can't do anything about it anyway. So they kind of feel a little bit handcuffed and defeated. And then number two, they don't want to piss off the insurance company, because if they're ordering it via the insurance company, they don't want the insurance company kicking them out of network for doing unnecessary testing, right? So you get in this position where you're like, crap, well, how do I handle this? How do I navigate it as a doctor? And so we exist in the world of cash medicine, so we can do what we want and do what we recommend and need what the patient needs. And we don't have to worry about some insurance company dictating what we can do for the patient. The problem with insurance is they get in the middle, and they're basically, imagine someone getting in between you and your doctor and questioning everything you're doing and saying, well, you probably don't need that. It's like, well, let me talk to the patient about that and see if the patient thinks we need it or not. I'm going to make a recommendation. Most of the time, the patient's like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Let's do it. But imagine that insurance company stepping in between you and saying, well, I don't know about that. So we have that advantage on the functional medicine side, not going through insurance, because we can give the patient exactly what they need.
Yeah, great point.